So in verse 19, Krishna says there are three categories, very important categories that make up everything that we need or that we do, and how they are influenced by the modes of material nature. Does everybody know what the modes of material nature are? Say no if you don't. Okay. The modes of material nature are three: tamas, rajas, and sattva. That's ignorance, the lowest, passion, which is the middle, and goodness, which is the topmost. So just like in colors, there's the spectrum, all different colors. But there's three primary colors. There's red, yellow, and blue. And an artist, how, according to his desire, which is based on how expert he is in mixing the colors, he can make amazing things happen with his artwork. Just from three colors: red, yellow, and blue. So in the same way, one definition of God, Krishna is the ultimate name of God. In Spanish, we could say Dios, in India, Bhagavan, in Hebrew, Adonai, and just plain English, God. But it doesn't mean those different names that we're talking about a different substance. Like if we go to the market and we say in Spanish, I want to buy leche, or I say milk, or I'm trying to think of other languages to say milk, but it's milk. Okay, so it's not that the name in the different languages changes the substance. So Krishna, he is the ultimate source of everything. And he has a genius or intelligence that is unlimited and is beyond even the greatest so-called brain of this world to understand, and is the good example of one, Albert Einstein, who at the ultimate end of all of his knowledge, which still to this day, some 70, 80 years later, people are marveling at what a genius he was, says his ultimate conclusion is there is a God with an intelligence who's planned this whole thing out and is in control of it. So there are two basic energies. Actually, there's three, but two main ones, and the third one is controlled by either of the two. There's material energy, and there's the spiritual energy. We, the living entities, in whatever form of life that we're in, are described as the marginal energy. We're spiritual, but we have the tendency, or let's say the opportunity, by misuse of free will, just like, you can decide to obey, say they're driving the cars, so they decide, or in the bike lane or whatever. It's a mundane example. You can obey the traffic laws and you can stop at the red light. And if you do that, it might seem like you're being restricted because, I want to drive like 90 miles an hour and I don't care about a red light. But if you follow the rules, even though if you want to drive 90 miles an hour, now you can only drive at the utmost 25 miles an hour in New York City. It might seem like you're being hampered, but by following those rules, then the purpose of driving is accomplished. You get from point A to point B. You get to where you want to go safely, nicely, and so does everybody else, hopefully. So the rules and regulations of how to exist in this material world are much more exacting and infallible than, you might drive through a red light, maybe the cop is not there to watch to see you, or the camera didn't pick it up, or whatever. You might get away with it. And we see many times people are seeing how they can be scufflaws, especially in terms of tax and business and money dealings, how to skimp and cut corners and hide the money and this and that. And there's a whole body of agencies that are meant to try to catch people who try to do things like that. It's called the Internal Revenue Service, right? Tax auditing, things like that. So Krishna, he doesn't have to play a game like that. His intelligence is so great, and he has many representatives to understand what's going on. So in the material world, when we give ourselves up to the material world, or we leave the spiritual world, and the main characteristic of the spiritual world, as different than this material world, is everything there is eternal. Everything in this material world is temporary. Our body is temporary. Our relationships are temporary. Everything is temporary. In the spiritual world, your body and your soul are one and the same. In the material world, it's completely different. Eternality, no birth, no death, old age, and disease. So for people who don't believe in God and come up with all types of foolish philosophy like, you have to go through the bad so you can really enjoy the good, which is crazy philosophy. It's likened unto in olden times that a punishment would be for a criminal that you'd be dunked in water and held underwater to the point where you practically just at your last breath, and then you're hauled out and you can breathe for like 30 seconds, and then you put back down in. So that's happiness in the material world. It's relief, brief relief in between the suffering. And the main suffering is birth. Can we imagine being in a fetal position and being kept in an airtight bag in complete darkness for 9 months? And it's described in the Vedic literatures, and even mundane scientists, they tell us this, they report the same thing, much to their credit, that at 7 months, the consciousness of the living entity as child in the embryo is awakened and feels the inconvenience of his situation. And especially in times like these, where people don't understand the purpose of regulating their sex activities, we have something with a nice name on it, but it's actually quite demoniac: Planned Parenthood, contraception and abortion. That the living entity by contraception is blocked rightful entrance by destiny into the womb of the mother that he's supposed to be given a chance to have a new life and a new body develop, or even worse, that he's been conceived, the sperm and the ovum of emulsified, and and his body is developing, abortion. And even but is the law so crazy now that you're not murdering the child even all the way up to the point of birth? Before it was like 6 months or 7 months. Now it's all the way up, right? Is that the law now?
The second trimester now, it's
yeah.
up until the day of birth.
Up until the day of... So it's great risk in this Kali Yuga. And then, who are you going to be born to? Are they going to be in concord with your desire to be spiritual? Most of the time, not. Or you could be born in a very difficult situation, place. And then old age. No one likes to get old. We see how everybody, by false identification with the body, they think to be young, that's everything. They can enjoy. And old, and try whatever you possibly can to not become old, but you're forced to become old by the laws of nature. And old age is like the yellow light. The red light, death is coming. Old age, and along with old age comes all different types of inconveniences to the body, which is breaking down, disease, and ultimately death. Like all of us, we've come here today, and by choice, and when everything is over, we know where we're going to go next. We're all going to go home. No anxiety. So at the time of death, if you've not practiced self-realization, which affords you the understanding of knowing, not just knowing, but planning your destination. When you have a trip planner and, plan your trip. You know when your bus is, don't wait for your bus, meet your bus, right? So Krishna consciousness affords one a 100% guarantee not only to catch the bus, but meet the bus. Actually, you're not going to get on a bus. You're going to have a chauffeur-driven limousine. You're going to be taken in a beautiful... It's described that the pure devotee is taken back to Godhead, where he is properly received and worshipped. Not so much worshipped, but treated properly. In this material world, we don't know how to treat each other properly because we all think that we're this body and mind, and because we're not self-realized, and just the very conception of identifying matter as self-realization, one will always be in anxiety. No matter how much you cover it over with the so-called, plastic smile on your face, I'm happy. You're not happy because you have no answer to birth, death, disease, and old age. So the modes of material nature are more or less Krishna's spectrum of colors to create a fantasy land. Prabhupada was taking a morning walk with disciples. I forget the place. Anyway, it doesn't matter where. And they were passing by a children's zoo in the city center. And there was one place within the children's zoo where they had like rides and kind of all kinds of things. And it said, Children's Fairyland. And then Prabhupada looked at it. Then he pointed to all the skyscrapers of the big city and he said, Adult Fairyland. Just summed the whole thing up in just one little... Actually, all types of so-called material progress, is just the attempt to counteract through, atheistic conception, the problems of birth, death, disease, and old age, which is more or less just turns into, what is it we say when somebody, you want to throw it under the rug? You cheated or you did something bad or, or it's a problem. Just put it under the rug. Put aside the problem and hopefully it'll go away or people won't notice. Sweep it under the rug. But Krishna, the modes of material nature are there. So what we're hearing now, according to this is an introductory preamble, so I don't want to let it to go too long. According to the 3 different modes of material nature, so one could be, the mode of goodness is the best mode to cultivate because that one gives one a better chance to realize the difference between matter and spirit, to realize what is beneficial, the difference between what is beneficial and what is detrimental. Whereas like in the mode of ignorance, which is characterized by intoxication, illicit sex, animal slaughter, meat eating, quite to the contrary of knowing what is beneficial and what is detrimental, you actually get conception and the philosophical rationale to be very strong to believe that which is very bad and detrimental is actually very good. And even worse than that, you become an enemy to that which is actually beneficial. And you say that which is actually beneficial is very bad. Belief in God and surrender to God is actually demoniac or against the real progress of life. And, like when they have these sayings, if it feels good, do it. I remember in the 70s, they had this book that came out at the height of the sexual freedom revolution, The Joy of Sex. And I think a devotee, somebody came out with a book countering that, The Joy of No Sex. So that is the mode of ignorance. And the mode of passion helps the mode of ignorance to be more successful ultimately. So most people are in the modes of passion and ignorance, and there's very little, if any, goodness. And the modes are always competing with each other. So even one tries to be in the mode of goodness and passion, then ignorance will take over. And the whole thing is spoiled, ultimately. So Krishna, one of the main emphatic recommendations and instructions of Krishna in the Bhagavad-gita is that one should rise above the influence of the modes of material nature. Almost like when one is in an airplane on the ground, then there's a lot of cloud cover, then it could be like difficult, fog or whatever. So if the pilot can rise above, bring the plane above all that. Everybody flew in a plane and you look out the window and you see the clouds way down and you're way up and it's completely clear. So that's spiritual understanding. You're above the clouds of the modes of material nature. So here, Krishna is describing three important categories. It was mentioned in verse 19. Knowledge, action, and the person who performs the action. According to the modes of nature, how they influence those things, one's knowledge, one's action, and one's nature as the performer of action based on the so-called knowledge influenced by the modes of material nature will be understood differently. So in the last two classes, 2021, we heard, especially in verse 20, the best type of knowledge, that knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities. In other words, materially, we're all covered over differently. Someone has a woman's body, someone has a man's body. Someone has a body that's in one race or color, and someone else has another. Someone, by a material standard, might be so-calledly beautiful or handsome, or proportionately not. This is not spiritual knowledge. Knowledge is seeing everyone equally. And on the spiritual platform, the spirit soul is very, very beautiful. Srila Prabhupada, he was on the highest platform of seeing not just the spiritual nature of every living entity, but the dormant, the covered eternal identity as a lover of God, their devotee svarup, or eternal form. He could actually see that. And that type of vision from a topmost Paramahamsa electrifies the atmosphere and brings everyone up, even in the lowest position, to an extreme platform of spiritual knowledge and ecstasy. There's most people are familiar with the life and teachings of Jesus Christ, and he was able to do that, and people were very much attracted to him. And there's even, I don't know if this is an authorized story, I know I've seen it in movies when I was a kid, like Ben-Hur, or other movies about Christ, that he's bringing his, the terrible crucifixion, he's bringing the cross, and one Roman soldier is like, anyway, it was Ben-Hur, Ben-Hur, it's a fictional story, he's like being sold into slavery, and Christ this is before everything, and he's like passes, the prison party being taken to the slave ships is like, and they pass by a watering place, and the Romans, horses and Roman soldiers first and only, and, the chained prisoners, and Christ come and he's like, personally giving the water to everybody, and then the Roman soldier is coming to admonish Christ, and he looks in Christ's faith, and he's just like so amazed by his purity and his spiritual influence that he just like surrenders and goes away, Anyway, somehow that came to my mind. So that type of spiritual understanding, one is beyond lust. In the material world, everyone is looking at everyone else based on attraction and repulsion on the material platform. What's in it for me? And it's tiresome. to relate with other people like that. You feel it, especially walking around in a city like New York, where everyone is so hyped up for, on the ego platform. I live in New York. I'm really cool. I'm a native New Yorker, and I know the score, and right? Yeah.
It gets tiring after.
Yeah. Actually, it's like a conveyor belt. All new young people come in. It's like, the old New Yorkers are like the crows who pick through the garbage, and there ain't nothing more to pick through, and been there, seen it, and done it. Then you got the new ones come in like, wow, That's called urban renewal. Like this area used to be, Alphabet City in particular was a very dangerous place, and just, and then around here, Bowery and the Lower East Side, Skid Row, and just like, you don't go there. And now it's like, it's the highest rent you got to pay per square inch you got to pay to stay here. And so people think because they stay here, they're very cool and hip and sophisticated. And spiritual knowledge, 0. Alertness for sense gratification, very, very high. Alertness to understand what is spirituality, 0. And then, there's so many different philosophies. I'm spiritual, but they're completely materialistic. So, knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms. I want to speak of human beings. How about animals? If one is engaged in any aspect of animal killing, you're not going to understand anything of this at all. And just like when there's a murder for hire, the meat eating, one who kills the animal, one who guts the animal, one who packages the animal or the meat, one who transports it, like in the truck, one who sells it, even the waiter or the stock boy in the supermarket, one who cooks it, one who serves it, the waiter, and one who eats it. They're all held as equally in murder. Just like the conspiracy to assassinate Abraham Lincoln, supposedly the John Wilkes Booth, but there were people who gave safe house. Even one lady who was in charge of a hotel, she was executed. She was hanged because of this murder of Abraham Lincoln. So animal killing, especially the cow, which is a very important animal for the progressive spiritual progress of the entire human society, is extremely sinful. And actually, the greatest demoniac activity is to arrange for cow killing and cow slaughter. And those who are the most demoniac in nature will most take part and relish this. Srila Prabhupada said that the Vietnam War was because of Lyndon Baines Johnson escalating it. Because he was a great proponent of animal slaughter. He was a rancher in Texas, and no social event was complete in his mind without killing a cow on the spot and eating it and distributing it. It was like a great festive occasion. So for that, the American boys, the youth of America, were sent for certain death in Vietnam because of this. Not just that, but so much bad karmic reaction of the wanton hedonism of the United States, especially after World War II. So all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms, you should understand to be in the mode of goodness. Then, knowledge in the mode of passion was described in verse 21. That knowledge by which one sees that in every different body there is a different type of living entity, you should understand to be in the mode of passion, like we were saying. This is a young man. This is a young woman. This is an old man. This is an old woman. This is a black person. This is a white person. This is a Jewish person. This is a Muslim person. This is a this. This is a that. I like this person. I don't like this person because of their physical form. I find it attractive or I don't find it attractive. The concept that the material body is the living entity right? You know, know yourself, you know. Know your body, right? That with the destruction of the body, the consciousness is also destroyed, is called knowledge in the mode of passion. Or no clear, like we know where we're going when we leave this program tonight. You don't know where you're going to go at the time of death. You have no knowledge. So this idea that at the time of death, when the body is destroyed, consciousness also ceases to exist. The soul doesn't cease to exist, doesn't exist anymore, is in the mode of passion. According to that knowledge, bodies differ from one another because of the development of different types of consciousness, or the other way around. You know, that my consciousness is of a man or a woman or this or that and blah, blah, blah. So my body is that because I'm like this. Otherwise, there is no separate soul which manifests consciousness. The body is itself the soul, and there is no separate soul beyond the body. So such a nice philosophy allows for eat, drink, be merry, and enjoy it to the utmost. See, very devious. Sometimes you see people that say a thing, or they're like, and you catch them. You can understand that behind, you know, what's the inner motivation behind it. And Krishna is very, very kind. You want this type of philosophy so you can rationalize this? Here you go. In the 6th canto, in the Hamsaguya prayers, there's a chapter. Krishna says, acting from within the core of the heart of so many different philosophers, he gives them a rational philosophy by which they can support their atheism. But the problem is they all disagree with amongst themselves, and there's competition. We see somebody makes a theory, and it stands very strong, and everybody's like, wow, this is it. And it might last for a generation, or 2 or 3 or 150 years. Then somebody else comes, no, it's not like this, it's like that. And then everybody goes, yeah. And we do like that. In science, in philosophy, in psychology. And the purport of it all, no matter where you stand in history, it supports sense gratification for the masses. This is very prominent today. There is no individual soul, but there is an all-pervading soul which is full of knowledge, and this body is a manifestation of temporary ignorance. So perfection is that we just merge into the oneness. You know, we lose our individuality. This is the foolishness of Buddhist philosophy. That nirvana means cessation of. So there's so much unhappiness through material activity and materialistic thought. So best is to just kill all desire and enter into just a peaceful void. This is likened unto having, you know, a curable disease or a very bad malady. Say you have a very bad boil and it's really, really painful. What's the answer? To blow on the boil? Get some temporary itching powder? Like they sell the bogus stuff in the drugstore over the counter for temporary relief. I don't want temporary relief. I want permanent relief. You know? The real answer is to get a minor surgical operation to remove the boil. That's people's foolish stubbornness to submit themselves to the rules and regulations of actual spiritual life and hear the actual truthful words of an actual saintly person or sadhu. Sadhu means saintly person. It also has a dual meaning, means to cut. Their words cut away our material attachment. So-called false gurus and teachers and self-help gurus and all these psychologists and whatever else, they're just pandering to people's desire, more or less, to want to have their cake and eat it too. And yes, this is wonderful. A real teacher will say, This world is not your home. You can't possibly be happy in this material world. You are not this body. You are the eternal servant of Krishna, and you must surrender to Krishna, and you must mold and base your life to please God. That is an actual teacher. Everyone else is a bogus rascal. And if they say anything different from those main things, they're a great cheater. So, if you have the boil and you think, you know what? I'm suffering so much because I'm alive. So if I just commit suicide and I'm dead, then I won't have to suffer anymore. That's this voidist philosophy. We're sentient beings and we're always active. We're always thinking, feeling, and willing. We have to remove the boil of this material identification with this body and regain the awareness of our real self. That will make us eternally happy. Or, beyond this body, there is no special individual or supreme soul. All such conceptions are considered products of the mode of passion. So if we cultivate goodness, which is the gateway to Shuddha-sattva or purified goodness, then we overcome easily all these misconceptions of life. So finally, here we are at verse 22, which we're supposed to speak on today. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all in all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. So let's say together, and that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all in all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. Purport, the, quote, knowledge, unquote. That's sarcastic, by the way. The knowledge of the common man is always in the mode of darkness or ignorance, because every living entity in conditional life is born into the mode of ignorance. There's the prayer, Om Ajnana Timirandasya. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master has opened my eyes with the torched light of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So this is a very important aspect of human life, is that we realize that mundane knowledge and my trying to figure things out based on my limited sense perception and puny mental and intellectual abilities is not satisfying my inner cravings, my inner spirit soul. I must approach someone who's actually liberated and above all of these misconceptions and receive instructions from him. Acceptance of a bona fide spiritual master is the duty and actually the great crowning success and achievement of this human form of life. It's described that everyone takes birth. That's not such a wonderful thing. But when one accepts the shelter of the bona fide spiritual master, one is actually understood to have achieved second birth, so one becomes twice born. And that's one's real birth. Birth into actual transcendental knowledge. Always in the mode of darkness or ignorance. Not knowing who you are means you are in ignorance. I am not this body. If I'm not this body, then who am I? We should be intensely desirous to know the answer to that question. One who does not develop knowledge through the authorities, I'll just figure it out as I go along. You know, be your own guru. I think they wrote a book like that too, right? There's an authoritative way, just like anything in New York City, real estate, financial dealings. There are very exact and intricate, and you might not even know how to figure it out. You might have to hire a real estate attorney. So you do everything proper. Right? Because if you don't, there can be trouble. So, what to speak of the most important thing of understanding your eternal identity? We're in this place of repeated birth, death, disease, and old age. It's like if you're in a burning building, you are in a building that is on fire. What is the first question you are going to ask that any sane person would ask? Would it be, wow, it's getting kind of hot in here, you know? Maybe I could I could make a Amazon and they're going to deliver me an air conditioner. You know, or maybe, you know, the fire's on this side, I'm sleeping. Maybe I'll just roll over on the other side. First question you're going to ask, or can we maybe, anyway, I won't think of it. The first question, how am I going to get out of here? That's the main question to ask. So, one who does not develop knowledge through the authorities or scriptural injunctions has knowledge that is limited to the body. He is not concerned about acting in terms of the directions of the scriptures. For him, God is money. Or the energy of God, instead of being used for God's pleasure, one wants to usurp that energy and use it in his own way based on ignorance of bodily identification. And knowledge means the satisfaction of bodily demands. There's a funny joke they tell in India, and Prabhupada would tell this story, that one man goes to another man and says, how intelligent are you? And the man starts looking in his pockets. What do you mean? I'm just saying, you asked me how intelligent I am. However much money I have, that means how smart I am. Right? Just like the individual who is now the President of the United States, I think one of the main motivating factors that he was voted in was because he purportedly is such a rich person, so he must be very smart. Mm-hmm. So if he can make that much money, then he must be qualified to guide our fair nation, you know, to great heights of success and progress and moral conduct and truth, justice, and all that kind of good stuff, right? Not so. He is not concerned about acting in terms of the directions of the scripture. For him, God is money, and knowledge means the satisfaction of bodily demands. Actually, this planet can maintain 10 times or more the population, what to speak of human beings, of all living entities, if everything was in harmony with the way that Krishna or God wants it to be organized. And ultimately, there would be one world government. So we see here, like, this big immigration. What did they vote it in yet? They want to make a wall along the Rio Grande River, you know? I don't know, I don't pay attention to such things. Right. So in other words, this is my country and we don't want you coming in here, you know, stealing our money, you know.
$5 billion.
Uh-huh.
There's no wall.
but are they going to do it? It's still an argument.
There's no funds.
No funds? Okay. Maybe we should charge $4 to go in the subway so we can help pay for the wall, right? Such knowledge has no connection with the absolute truth. Prabhupada remarked these types of border issues in my country and immigration to like barking dogs. Of course, here dogs are kept on a leash, and because they're treated practically like royalty, they're not going to bark at you most of the time. But dogs become self-appointed, because dogs are not taken care of, at least in India. Maybe other countries are like that. I don't know. I've been in India. And they become like the neighborhood watchdogs. And, just you walk by, they start barking at you. Who are you? You can't come here. And whoever is the biggest dog, he makes sure all the other dogs obey him. And if not, then there's going to be trouble. So America is the big dog, and, and we can go anywhere we want for liberty, justice, and oil. And, we're the top dog. So why are you coming into my country? Get out. I'm just like a barking dog. Whereas a devotee, he can go anywhere he wants. Because everywhere is God's country and everywhere are God's citizens. And he has a right to go anywhere. So that's the way things should be run. So all this politics and my country, your country, it's just a mode of ignorance. Such knowledge has no connection with the absolute truth. It is more or less knowledge of the ordinary animals. The knowledge of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. Such knowledge is described here as a product of the mode of darkness. In other words, knowledge concerning the spirit soul beyond this body is called knowledge in the mode of goodness. When everyone is progressively, it's described in one place, as long as one is not envious of the principle, okay, mistakes are the pillar of success, but the goal is assigned, and I agree, this is what should be strived for. If everyone is like that, then everything becomes balanced so nicely, economically, politically, proper distribution of all necessary goods and commodities. That's a big one, Simple living, high thinking. Now we have the opposite. We have very complicated and luxurious living and practically little to no real thinking. We don't need all of this, what there's a Madison Avenue and, like to take a walk from 59th Street on 5th Avenue down to, say, the Empire State Building. Do you need all of that stuff? Saks Fifth Avenue, perfumes and... You don't need it. Knowledge concerning the spirit soul beyond this body is called knowledge in the mode of goodness. And goodness is characterized by being concerned for the welfare of others, being charitable, being peaceful, being friendly. All saintly qualities originate in the mode of goodness. It's described that the devotee is adorned with 26 qualities. Can maybe somebody pull it up real quick if you have a smartphone, the 26 qualities of a devotee? The list. Knowledge producing many theories and doctrines by dint of mundane logic and mental speculation is a product in the mode of passion, and knowledge concerning only with keeping the body comfortable is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Does anyone have any questions?
You want to talk?
I'll see it. Let me.
It's a little small, but
Okay. That's good.
yeah.
He is very kind to everyone. He does not make anyone his enemy. He is truthful. He is equal to everyone. No one can find fault in him. He is magnanimous. He is mild. He is always clean externally, and his mind is clean. He's not like conquered by material lusty desires, which are very dirty. He's free from that. He is without possessions. If he has possessions, there we write in care of such and such dasi. This is or dasi that this is entrusted to me to use in the Lord's service. if having, one pair of sneakers and one pair of summer shoes and one pair of winter shoes is enough, why have a closet of 50 pairs of shoes and boots? He works for everyone's benefit. See, everyone is working for their own benefit. And see, nobody can, because of that selfishness, no one can be really, truly concerned for other people. And we see, strangers, in the spiritual world, everyone is greatly friendly and concerned, and everyone knows each other and respects each other. Here it's like just my family or my little clan or my little clique, and everybody else is a stranger, and I can't trust them. Don't make eye contact with anybody. So the pure devotee, I think I lost the...
Sorry, we'll fix it.
No, I'm going to take a picture of myself.
Sorry.
Okay. He's equal to everyone. He knows what's real happiness by his own experience is becoming self-realized and free from material lusty desires, and he knows that is what will make other people happy also. Working for everyone's benefit. And that is the finest understanding of what is real nonviolence. Violence means to act, or even by your mental energy, create a situation that impedes anyone else's ability to understand their eternal spiritual self. That means speaking some nonsense, playing some crazy music, whatever it is. Even in the name of, hey, come on, man, drink this. We're all buddies, We had our Harinam party, we had an apartment on Pitt Street, which is basically Avenue C below Houston. And I would come here every morning to chant my japa. I was actually very happy 2 years doing that for that particular reason. And I would have to walk on Houston Street to come through here, and this particularly Avenue A and First Avenue is like the big drinking spot in New York City. And, I would come, I would get up early to do it. I'd come like 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's like the height of everything. Everybody's like, wow, and like you see like friends, yeah, man, you're my friend for life and buddy, and drink another beer. And then I would go to the Mangal Artik at the nearby Bhakti Center on First Avenue. So I'd come out of here at 4:45 in the morning. And so those same people who were like friends and embracing and loving each other and drinking together, cursing each other and picking up a garbage pail and throwing it at the other person, and I never want to see you again, and throwing broken glass at each other. So where did all that friendship go? Okay, we came back to the same point here. How do you make it...
just that's all. I'll fix it. It's the battery.
There's a security. Is it 1 minute setting or 5 minute
I'm
setting?
taking it off, sorry. It's to save battery.
So when your so-called friendship and relationship is based on sense gratification, at a certain point, it's going to go south. Works for everyone's benefit. So when you repeat the instructions of Krishna, and actually the best thing you can do to help other people, we say even higher than saving yourself, saving others is to save yourself. You can help other people who are drowning if you're drowning too. You get on the dry land, or you get in the lifeboat of transcendental knowledge, and strongly situated there, you can pull other people out of the ocean. So if you take your own personal sadhana or practice to come to the stage of love of Godhead very, very seriously, then automatically you will be endowed with the ability to convey Krishna's love, shelter, and mercy to others. And that's the best possible charity and best possible thing you can do for anyone. He works for everyone's benefit. We say about the pure devotee in our prayer to the spiritual master, From him, ecstatic prema, love of Godhead, emanates, by which the darkness of ignorance is destroyed. Lokanath Lokera Jivana, he is the life and soul of everyone. And he can give shelter to everyone. When you conquer your mind and senses and become self-realized, you can give spiritual shelter to everyone all over the world. That is really the purport of acting for everyone's benefit. He is very peaceful. Even Prabhupada came here to New York City. A pure devotee, he acts simply to fulfill the will of Krishna and please Krishna, and for that, he is not concerned where he is or what he has to do. I just passed through the Union Square subway, and they have like new advertising all through the subway. Bermuda, and like all, young people with hardly any clothes and sense gratification and beautiful. Wow, I'm going to enjoy, and I got to get out of New York and go on vacation, Or, in the wintertime, they'll say, it's time to go to Florida, We stay in the subway all through the wintertime. Tens and thousands of people pass by us every day. Prabhupada was asked, what happens when people pass by the Harinam party and they're ignoring us and they don't really take it seriously? He says it goes in their transcendental bank account. Like if you take out a bond for your child, for college, the bond just grows. You can't take it out of the bank until a certain date. So again, they get transcendental benefit. The result of any transcendental or spiritual gift or contact with actual pure devotional service is eternal and permanent. Can never be taken away. Whereas materialistic activities give you bad karma, the reactions to those things are temporary. But Krishna consciousness can nullify and change those reactions. You're creating their good fortune. So the pure devotee, even in the most tumultuous situation, what we would consider externally, is very, very peaceful. And for the pure devotee, he has no need to seek out a so-called peaceful, secluded place. If it stops him in his service to Krishna, and Krishna's main desire for a devotee who is in this material world is to spread Krishna consciousness, especially in this age of Kali, when everyone is in such a precarious situation because of the prevailing ignorance and the demoniac stronghold. He is always surrendered to Krishna. He has no material desires. He is very meek. He is steady. He controls his senses. He does not eat more than required. He is not influenced by the Lord's illusory energy. Quite to the contrary, he's influenced by the Lord's spiritual yogamaya energy. And for him, he's always experiencing ecstasy. True spiritual happiness. The pure devotee is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited activities of Krishna and his pure devotees in the topmost realm, and by that he's always experiencing great, ever-increasing new transcendental happiness, which is simultaneously his motivation, as he wants to share that with everyone. Just like the sun diffuses its rays equally, powerfully. Prabhupada was one time saying, they think they're so, create electricity and so many different light bulbs and this and that and blah, blah, blah. But Krishna, he creates just one light, one sun, boom, and lights the entire universe. Just see how great an electrician Krishna is. He offers respect to everyone. And real respect means to offer everyone the opportunity to get out of the material concept of life. That is real respect. Whereas disrespect means to block or perpetuate another's stay in this material world. That's disrespecting others. He does not desire any respect for himself. Prabhupada He didn't want any respect for himself, and even to date, people think of the Hare Krishna movement. Hare Krishna. He made Krishna famous. He didn't make himself famous. There's all these bogus gurus, come to me, I'm the great one, this one and that, and usually they're very cheap and licentious people, end up having sex with their Western female disciples, and horrible. He does not desire any respect for himself. He is very grave. He is merciful. He is friendly. He is poetic. He is expert. He is silent. Here we have a perfected description of the completely surrendered devotee. With such definitive information and criteria available, there is no room for speculating as to who is truly surrendered and who is not. Who wrote this?
I don't know, Roy, just the first thing that
Okay.
for the 26th.
It's good, but I don't want to.
Could go to something else.
I was thinking,
No, it's all right. All right. Any questions or comments? What is the program? We go till 7:30? Or 7:30 includes another kirtan?
No. Go.
Okay, so it's 7:17-ish, so we have some time.
Yeah. You started a little late. So.
Huh?
You started a bit late.
No, I had a 30-minute preamble.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow, it's so late. I was right on time, I thought.
Because this is knowledge in the mode of ignorance, I gave a description how we got the ignorance from goodness to passion. And get a little recapitulation.
Okay.
Just one question. I mean,
Oh, here's your phone there.
Krishna makes it obvious, but still, like, how can someone be steady in the mode of goodness? It's so difficult. You always get dragged down into ignorance and passion. What's like, in your experience, what are the
Regulated.
really helpful things?
First and foremost is the morning hours. The morning hours are for the mode of goodness cultivation. Like I was saying, I'm getting up at like 1:45, 2 o'clock in the morning and coming over here and chanting japa for 2.5, 3 hours. And then I go and see the beautiful forms of Radha and Krishna in the temple. First thing in the morning, as the sun is rising, it's described that one who performs, in particular chanting the Guru Astakam, but overall, one who hears and chants the glories of Krishna, fixes his mind on Krishna in this pre-dawn time, he will achieve direct service to Krishna, the Lord of Vrindavan, at the time of the demise of his body. So there are so many instructions on how to get into and stay in the mode of transcendental goodness. Let's do it. Just like if you want to get somewhere, then there's, like the subway is such a mess. You have to check which one, what's the weekend problem or the L train and all this insanity, and let me find the best way to go. So, like getting tripped up by let's make a parallel. Getting tripped up by the modes of nature is like getting stuck on the bad train. But if you knew beforehand that this would happen, let's say you could, then I'm going to do that. Or Prabhupada would say, like, many people, they will mix there might be some sincere desire for spiritual progress, but it's very much mixed with other material motivations, and they're not really brave enough or honest enough to stop those things, So adopt association or, association with people, or a philosophy that kind of, half-baked, or, So, your sincerity will ultimately bring you to the point of realizing it's really not doing it. So here's one funny story. It's an old Indian story. There was one yogi, and he had the ability that he could stay submerged in water in the wintertime, freezing cold. And he made a wager with a very rich man that he could do it. And, he did it. The yogi stayed in the river for a long time, and it was a good sum of money was wagered, and the rich man was like, he turns to one of his advisors, one of his sycophantic, one of his bootlicking kind of yes men. How am I going to get out of this? He says, you know what? The yogi's got mystic powers. He was meditating on that, it's like a flame, ghee lamp burning on the top of that temple spire about, like from here to Bleecker Street or something, like 500, like a couple of blocks away. 2 long blocks away, right? You cheated, and that's because you were meditating on that flame, you stayed warm. And the yogi and the bystanders went, what? And so the yogi turned to another one of the rich man's associates who was a little more, honest and not so much going to be a bootlicking sycophant. He said, don't worry, I'll fix this, but you might have to give me a couple of days. Oh, this particular person was the man's kind of like main kind of advisor or this and that. And so the next day or the day after, the rich man had to take care of some very important business at a very certain time, and he wanted his advisor to be with him, say 10 o'clock in the morning. So he was told this the night before and said, okay, no problem. I'll cook my breakfast, because he was a Brahmin, and in those days, a Brahmin would cook his own meals. I'll make my own cook, and I'll take my meals, and then we will go. 9:45 or something. So 9:45 comes around, and the rich man is like, what? He calls him, what's going on? I'm cooking. Don't worry, I'll be ready. And he comes in at 5 minutes of 9 into the room, and it's like with a high ceiling, and he sees that he's got like 3 bamboo poles, and there's a pot, like the 12 feet off the ground. On the bottom is like a little votive candle, And what the hell cooking is this? So I'm cooking. It's heat. What's the problem? It's the same. The yogi was staying warm, so I'm cooking. So the rich man realized, and he paid the yogi his wager. So in that way, if we want the result of cooking, we have to put the pot on the fire, and the fire has to be strong enough, and we have to keep the fire there for a sufficient amount of time. So spiritual life is like that also. So we have to take to the authorized means, the blueprint, the roadmap, the instructions given, how to do it. It's like a recipe. Does anyone like to cook and use recipe books? Yes? Yes. So if you follow the recipe, especially from like an expert cook who wrote the cookbook, chances are pretty good if you don't do anything different, you'll get the same result of the recipe. So there's a recipe for success. So if we follow it as it is, just like Prabhupada said, Bhagavad-gita As It Is. Before coming, Prabhupada even writes in the preface, I think the number is 400 editions in English. This is 50 years ago. Not one person became a real Krishna Bhakta. But I presented Bhagavad-gita As It Is. Thousands of people are coming forward to be devotees. And Krishna, Arjuna asked that question in the 6th canto. It seems very difficult. And Krishna says it's possible by suitable practice and detachment. And ultimately, it's not by our own endeavor, it's by Krishna ultimately being pleased in seeing we're really sincere in our efforts. We ultimately have to cry for Krishna. Sincerely, I don't want all of this nonsense. Please pick me up. Ai nandatanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavambudo kripaya mercy tavapada pankaja stita duli shardisham vichintaya. O son of Maharaj Nanda, Krishna, we're identifying God in his ultimate loving feature where he completely gives himself in equal love to his pure devotees. This is the ultimate fulfillment of our hankering soul, to come to that stage of Krishna Sambandha. Ai Nanda Tanuja Kinkaram. Patitam Mam. Somehow or other. You don't ask, how did I get in the burning building? Somehow or other I've fallen into this ocean of material birth and death. Get me out of this burning building. Samsara Dava Nalalila Loka Tranaya Karananganangavanatvam. Please pick me up from this ocean of death. No matter how strong a swimmer one is in the ocean, you're going to drown. You might, by your strength, you can just prolong the inevitable. Everyone has to die. But if you're picked up out of the ocean, even just 6 inches above the ocean, and you're held there strongly, you're saved. So taking the spiritual life initially is like being lifted up out of the ocean. But by progressive and fall down or insincerity means you fall back into the ocean. So the ultimate position, it's not just being pulled out of the North Atlantic by the Carpathia boat if you were in the Titanic, but you have to be brought to shore in New York and cured from your hypothermia and get back to real life. So we get out of the ocean. It's described in one place to be restless in association with wealth and women, or whatever, opposite sex desire, is not at all an astonishment, because one has been associated with these things from a very remote time, practically immemorial, and it takes time to recover from the foreign nature. So we've been identifying with the foreign nature for a long time, this material nature. So we have to, by hearing and chanting, become familiar again, just like an amnesia victim. Who are you? These are your friends. These are your family members. These are the people who love you. Stay in there. So they send an amnesia victim home in some cases, many cases, or they would like to do that. So by familiar association, Krishna consciousness is not a foreign imposition on the mind. It is our original consciousness. And just to probably give the example, when you're fast asleep at night, and say some friends, hey, there's somebody coming to shoot us all dead here. We've got to get up, but the house is burning down. They're doing it by sound vibration. Wake up! And the louder the better. Not that you're sleeping and the person is making hand symbols or, I'll show you a silent movie or something, or whatever. Maybe light a stick of incense and put it to your nose, but better to make a loud noise. So the chanting of the holy name, the transcendental sound vibration, wakes us up from our dreaming condition. So on that aspect of mercy, and in that section in the 6th canto, it might seem like a difficult job, very, very difficult. And so there's a story of a little sparrow bird who laid her eggs on the shore of the ocean, and unfortunately the ocean tide rised up very big and came to the point where on the shore and washed the little bird's eggs to sea. And the mother little sparrow came back very upset and ordered the ocean, give me back my eggs. And the ocean, being so vast and great, just laughed, wouldn't even consider. And so the sparrow was extremely determined. All right, I'm going to empty the ocean, and one beak at a time, go to the shore, take the water, back and forth. And everybody's laughing at the little bird for her impossible determination. But she kept at it. It seemed like impossible, just crazy. News of her activity spread. And finally, Garuda, who was the great transcendental eagle carrier of Lord Vishnu himself. We don't have a picture of Vishnu and Buddha here, came, seeing that his small sister bird was doing like this, and ordered the personal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead ordered the ocean, and the ocean immediately became afraid because Garuda could, make a big problem. Huh? And so the eggs came back. So the idea is that we have to prove ourselves worthy candidates, and not by our own effort, by the mercy of God. And then Prabhupada concludes that purport by saying, spiritual life might seem like a difficult job, but God helps those who help themselves. And we have to, prove ourselves. We have to struggle. And that people are struggling for, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, name, fame, popularity, adoration, and distinction, which is all just, there's no happiness in it. It's just a mirage of happiness, and it's all finished at the time of death. They're struggling so hard for that, such a fleeting goal. So why not struggle for the topmost thing? And Krishna is not an ingrate. He's very, very responsive. Don't think that it's not a Krishna checking us out. He's watching us at every moment. He wants to see our sincerity. And Krishna will give himself to you. Anything else? Hare Krishna, yes.
When you get involved in your passions and stuff you want to do,
Can you speak a little bit louder?
when you get involved in the passions and stuff you want to do in life, like stuff you want to be when you grow up,
On passion, and then you said something about drugs?
When you do
things
passion,
you want to be when you grow up, like your passions and your aspirations.
Okay.
Can you worship Krishna through that too? Could you not worship Krishna through that too? Could you not worship him through what you love to do as well, like materially?
There's much scope for that, but again, it has to be done under proper guidance, and there should be precedent of the same others who've had similar instincts and attractions doing that for the pleasure of God also. This is a big discussion, but you can read in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, that whatever one has a natural propensity for, if it's done, let me just simply state it, if your overarching and overall goal in life is to please the Lord, to please Krishna, then, of course, you can't be like a butcher and run a slaughterhouse, and that's for Krishna, but if you want to, main example is given is you become successful in business and you make money, and you use the money beyond just for your immediate needs. You're not living lavishly or high on the hog, to quote that saying, unnecessarily, and you donate to those who are actually in true concord with Krishna's desire to spread the pure knowledge of devotional service to others. It's even described that one who sacrifices his wealth, his words, his intelligence, and his reputation for spreading the glories of Krishna, the Sankirtan movement, is recognized by the Lord and endowed with his blessings. Of all a man might sacrifice or use those things, your wealth, your intelligence, your beauty, your reputation, one who use those things for spreading Krishna consciousness is most glorious. It's the most glorious thing. So that's a short answer to that. But in general, we'd say yes. But as long as it's the things that you're doing are not under the influence or involved in, there's 4 main sinful activities which keep you in material consciousness. And by not doing those things, you are free to rise up to spiritual self-realization. That's any aspect of meat eating or animal slaughter, intoxication, drugs, alcohol, illicit sex, that means sex just for lust and so-called physical lusty pleasure, And what is the result of sex is that children are born, or in other words, that this material world, the main way that this material world is functioning is, especially for the human species of life, because the humans can understand self-realization. Dogs, cats, and other living entities can't. Is that being given a chance, like we give respect to our father and mother because they raised us, they brought us into this world, like tomorrow's Mother's Day, for example. Because with this body, this body, you can use it for sense gratification and you can go to the darkest regions of ignorance, or you can use this body like a boat. You can sail your boat off the cliff, or you can sail your boat to paradise. This body is like a boat, and the properly hoisted sail is the instructions of the Vedas and the spiritual master, and the favorable winds that will catch the properly hoisted sail is the mercy of the Lord. So what is your ultimate goal and motivation? And in that way, the natural propensity, illicit sex, media, and gambling. Not just like gambling all your money away on the lottery and putting your family, the house and everything is finished. But like I said, all different types of speculative philosophies that end in, just supporting the idea that I can enjoy on the material platform. That is called mental speculation. That's also under the framework of gambling. So then your natural propensities and your identity, your activities, what you're good at doing, then it becomes glorious because it's used for the pleasure of Krishna. Like Hanuman, very powerful, and he used his strength and power to help Lord Ramachandra defeat the great demon. This is a famous story called the Ramayana. It's a very... Anyway, he used his strength against the usurpers, against the evil people, the bad people. And it's called the Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas are meant to protect the devotee Brahmins. Just like we do Harinam Sankirtan in public, and sometimes we're faced with different difficulties, and sometimes we have, just well-wishing people walk by, big, strong people, and they come and take care of it for us. I'll conclude. We've gone over time. This is the famous story of Morris, the chess player at Union Square Park. So this goes back to 2013, and we have our spot in Union Square Park in front of the subway entrance next to the fountain. And this one he was playing an upright piano, and he had like a 45-minute repeating spool of, sleazy lounge lizard kind of, piano songs, And like Billy Joel, I'd rather cry with the sinners than laugh with the saints. The sinners are much more fun, right? And, we're saying, hey, this is our spot. Oh, come on, man. You're spreading peace and love. I'm spreading peace and love. There ain't no difference. Plus, I was here first. And he had a couple of goons with him who rolled the piano out. And, it became a race. And this guy was into it. We sent somebody out there at 10 o'clock in the morning. He was still there. We sent somebody out at 8 o'clock in the morning. He was still there. So there's Morris. He's a big 6'6" guy. And he just comes and plays chess, as a hobby, because he's a bodybuilder, personal trainer, bouncer at different clubs, security guard. It's like 6'6", he's, like really like Lord Nrsimhadev, and he comes up and says, you know what? I like you guys. I'm going to take care of this for you, free of charge. So the piano player, he goes up to the piano player and says, look there, man, me and you, and he's like, he's not there now, but at the time he was more or less the popular voted mayor of Union Square Park. If there was any issue, he would sort it out with anybody, So he goes up to the guy, says, look, me and you, we need to have a conversation. Come on, man, Superfly, you know, they're spreading peace and love. I'm spreading peace and love. There ain't no difference. So he says, look, first thing I want you to know is that you are an American. I'm an American. You're entitled to your opinion. There's George Washington sitting on a horse here protecting our constitutional rights. I'm not taking that away. You have a right to feel like that and say like that, okay? But from you, I would like the respect to understand that I'm also an American and I got a right to my opinion. Now, you say that you're spreading peace and love and that they're spreading peace and love. There ain't no difference. Now, when they're here and chanting Hare Krishna, let me tell you my experience of what happens. More people come in the park. More people sit down to play chess. My mind becomes very peaceful. Let me tell you, I've had problems with anger before. I've had to even legally take anger management to get off some like misdemeanor charges, you know? And so when they're chanting Hare Krishna, my mind becomes very peaceful. And I play a better game of chess. I'll win more games. I make more money. Now, when you play that piano, difference. Less people come in the park. I don't play a very good game. I don't win as many games. I don't make much money. And these thoughts of anger come back, and that's very disturbing. So there's a difference. So I want between me and you to be an understanding. Just like on a clear day, without any obstruction, you can see the sun nice in the beautiful blue sky. Because later, brother, if there happens to be a misunderstanding, a cloud or a fog, I want you to know that means a big storm is going to be coming. And you don't want that. I got me 12 brothers, whatever the organization he said, in Newark, New Jersey. All I got to do is push a button. You don't even want to think about opening up that book. So between me and you, this is your last day in this spot. Is that understood? Then he went on to further and say, you know, everyone is here, is established. This is an established spot. You don't just come into an established spot without checking with the people who are already thus established. That ain't cool. Or as my mother used to teach me when I was a baby, she's gone taking a trip up to heaven. That's just plain bad manners. And the guy just took that piano out of there. And so my realization was that because we're chanting Hare Krishna, we're doing the right thing, we got a powerful Kshatriya to come and protect us. So everyone has their place and everyone has different tendencies and proclivities. And in a God-conscious, Krishna-conscious society, everyone is positioned is equal and needed. Just like the head just can't walk around. It has to have a torso. We have to have arms. We have to have legs to be complete. The legs don't think, well, why don't I go up there and do the thinking right now, you know? And the head's not thinking, well, you know, maybe I should do the hands. It's whatever your position, you stay in it, and you could become perfect. There's a verse later in this chapter, by performance of one's duties or one's natural proclivities, everyone can become perfect. So with that, we've gone over time, too much over time. We can stop. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Bhagavad-gita ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Haribol. Hare Krishna.